Want to make movies? Hey there, aspiring filmmakers. You're the new Hollywood generation. My name is Orlando Delbert. This is Hollywood Unapologetic. I first wrote about success in filmmaking and life when I was writing Pollyanna's tear-soaked Battlefields of Hollywood, a survival guide against the cynicism and the hypocritical. Today I want to speak about filmmaking essentials, film production stages, film production process as part of a crash course film production. I'm going to add a link at the very end to the episode, Filmmaking Essentials, the foundation of being a director and filmmaker. I've been asked via Twitter, what is the film production process? This is a common question. What we're about to speak about are things content creators need to do and be mindful of during these 5 steps of film production. I have to mention up front, there is a lot to creating our vision. Most of the steps for motion picture, television, and streaming productions of higher production value are the same in the most part, but distribution is different. Plus, with the growing availability of digital and self-distribution outlets online, and with the growing popularity of crowdfunding, there's multiple ways to get your vision financed and your voice heard. I offer these episodes to give you more in-depth information, all in the hopes to help you make your checklist of things you need to have in order and be mindful of before you pick up your camera and shoot a single frame. The first stage in the filmmaking production process is the development stage. This is the stage when ideas for film are put together. Sometimes that means acquiring the rights to a book, stage play, magazine article, video game, comic book, graphic novel, or directly from the source of a true story. Other times the screenplay has already been written or a pitch for an idea is available. Whether you've acquired the rights, have a pitch or an idea, the first thing you will need to do during the development stage is to get a good script. This may not be as simple as it sounds. For every good script, there are countless others that are especially bad. A good script will move you. A bad script will leave you with the feeling that the time lost in reading it will never be given back. Some individuals that want to direct are writers who want to see their ideas brought to fruition. Others are actors who want to have control of a particular project and would like to see their interpretation of it on the big screen. Regardless of where the script comes from, you will want to tell a good story. Remember, good filmmaking is good storytelling. In the event you want to develop a screenplay from an idea or someone's pitch, the producer will work with a writer or writers to strengthen the mood of the story, the development of the characters, and dialogue. This happens next. You're going to break down the script. What that means is go through the script scene by scene and make a list of what is needed for each shot. This will go into your production package or show bible for television and will help you figure out your budget, production schedule, what crew is needed, and everything else to see your project all the way through. The producer of the project usually does this. He often will work with a writer or writers to create a treatment for the project and break down each scene that concentrates on structure. Usually for a feature-length film, the treatment can be 25-30 pages or so in length. This is known as the original draft treatment. Some producers will contact film distributors at this stage to help assess what the potential is for financial success of the project. Every distributor has a set criteria designed to bring in maximum return of their investment. Film genre, target demographic, and markets for distribution are also considered. We'll get more into that in this distribution stage. Please keep in mind, through your production journey, Hollywood is about making money first. Keep in mind, whomever you speak to in regards to financing and distribution are concerned only with their financial return, and that's it. Being mindful of this in the development stage helps dramatically in your chances of securing financing, distribution, and possibly gaining a profitable film project. The distributors will look at what is popular at the moment and compare that with recent trends and with similar projects in the past, as well as whom the directors and actors were in those projects, and compare with who would be fitting for your project and your list of letters of intent, if you have any. Letters of intent, or LOIs, are documents outlining one or more agreements between the film's producers and those who plan to be involved with your project. Oftentimes, on-camera talent and above-the-line crew members make agreements in writing, which in part helps the producers secure financing. The more notoriety, success, and recognizable names are attached to your project, the higher the chances of getting financing and distribution. By the way, for most of you watching this, half if not most of the funding for your project will most likely come from your distribution deal. We'll get more into that in the distribution stage and when we discuss the negative pickup deal. Alright, now it's time to get some money. Or better said, build the essential elements and mindset to go get some money. Yes, that's better. You have to be clear and focused at this point, and understanding what you do next will help you secure financing. This can be a bit of a challenge for some of you. While the producer and screenwriter are working on the script, They often will write a film synopsis, film pitch, and a presentation treatment as well to help get the financing needed for a production. A film synopsis is a brief summary of what the film is about with the focus on the major points of the film. Brief is the operative word here, boys and girls. Your film pitch is a verbal presentation of your film. Oftentimes, the film's director or the screenwriter will present the pitch to a film producer or studio executive in the hopes of securing financing. Think of it this way. A film pitch is much like a film synopsis, but it's more of a quick presentation you can give someone in under 30 seconds to hook him or her into your idea. Imagine getting on an elevator and you find yourself standing next to an angel investor or executive producer you know would love your project. What are you going to do? Stare at the doors, or will you introduce yourself? You may have 20 to maybe 30 seconds to clearly and concisely introduce yourself, your project, and give them the hook to bring them in to want to know more. Yes, the hook. Advertising executive Donnie Deutsch used to call this the elevator pitch on his television show, The Big Idea with Donnie Deutsch, when it ran on CNBC. I don't know if he came up with the term or not, but it's something I've heard many successful entrepreneurs talk about, myself included. Presentation treatment is usually scene description cards written out in order consisting of main story points that describe each scene. Think of it as the simplest representation of your film. I love these. I think of these as the precursor to storyboards. You want to be able to present the film's concept, subject matter, to introduce the characters, and a synopsis of the master scenes. The purpose of the presentation treatment is to show how production notes have been incorporated into the project screenplay. These help the director and production executives see what is needed for each scene and see how the story flows. I should also mention you'll need a film synopsis and film presentation treatment when you present your film pitch. Keep in mind, as you are working on what is needed during this stage of the production process, all of those you will ask for help have not heard of your project, and for most of you, they might not have heard of you either. Next, and very importantly, don't get overwhelmed. One of the things that happen to first-time filmmakers is that they have moments of being overwhelmed. This can easily happen. The second stage in the filmmaking production process is the pre-production stage. This is the stage when you prepare all of the moving parts to your project. No matter how much you may want to jump into running full steam with your project, pre-production should not begin until you have financing secured, as well as the cinematographer, key production crew members, and cast are all secured. Almost all of us in the creative arts gets anxious and pushes ahead once we get here. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, except in this case. I can tell you from my experience and from what I've seen in projects I've been directly involved with and countless other projects by other content creators, many things can happen at this pivotal point to sideline a project. I would add even more frustration in the event the project gets put on pause, regardless of the reason why. I previously mentioned breaking down a script scene by scene and make a list of what is needed for each shot. But at this stage of the pre-production process, the first thing to do during the pre-production stage is to break down the script even more. At this stage, you take your initial breakdown of the script and expand upon it. This will help develop storyboards for individual scenes, help provide location information and a prop list, see which cast members need to be scheduled for which scenes, develop a wardrobe and costume list, develop a digital and practical visual effects and makeup list, and any other details that are needed. Next, you create a shot list. A shot list will be an extension of the presentation treatment. It will be a detailed breakdown of each individual shot the director anticipates shooting. This can include camera moves, types of shots, dialogue, technical and special effects notes, and additional notes not seen in the storyboards. Now comes the production design. This is something that a lot of smaller productions don't pay enough attention to. Notes from the presentation treatment will be used to develop the theme of the film. Is it a period piece? What are the mood progressions throughout the film? These are questions that need to be answered for every scene and shot of your project. You need to know the kinds of locations each scene will have, including prop lists for each scene. When considering the look and feel of the film, one should account for how each scene should be lit, the color palette and graininess, as well as any practical and or special effects that may be needed. The wardrobe and costuming of everyone on camera needs to be considered and how they may change from scene to scene. And even if a particular location or set piece will in some way become a character of the film itself should be considered as well, much like the RV mobile lab Walter White and Jesse Pinkman used to cook crystal meth in Breaking Bad, the Millennium Falcon flown by Han Solo in multiple Star Wars films, or the 11 Aston Martins used in several James Bond films over the course of 50 years. Once you have all of this information together, now you're able to put together your storyboards. Think of them as a visual representation of every shot in your film. But storyboards are far more than just that. They should include camera movements and blocking of your on-camera talent, as well as set pieces and props that are in the shots. If there are any special effects, visual or audible, that should be included, as well as prominent lighting cues and any purposeful use of shadows. Think of how the shots and lighting work together in film noir. And they should be of every angle, B-roll, and everything you plan to actually have in your film. Now it's time to find and secure your locations. Once the shot list is completed, it can be used to generate a separate list for locations. Usually a location scout will drive around to different production-friendly locations with a still camera and take several photos of exteriors and interiors, as well as have contact information for each location along with their rates. Find out if the locations or sound stages you will be scouting are union or non-union. This can have a direct impact on everything from your budget, load-in, setup, and strike times, as well as even dictating how many of the union's people will be required to be on hand. Most location scouts already have a database they can access based on where they have been before. Keep in mind you have to account for access to crew and gear, availability to power and what its limitations are, ambient sound, parking and security, and bonding and permit requirements. It would be a good idea to take storyboards with you on a site survey and block where you would have your cameras, lights, props, and talent. Take a lot of photos, not only of the point of view for each camera view to be shot, but also shots of outlets and breaker boxes, spans, doorways, and anything and everything you see that can be used to benefit the production, or things that can be possible restriction. Be mindful of where cables may be run. Make a note if there are fluorescent light fixtures and where they are, even if they're not in your shots. Not only do they typically run in a certain color temperature that may not fit how the scene will be lit, they can also flicker and your microphones can pick up the hum. Make sure you have enough room to get your gear and set pieces through doorways and elevators, as well as see if there are any structural load limitations you need to know about. Take measurements wherever it is needed. Safety should be number one. Make lots of notes and include exits in case of emergency and know where the closest hospital is. Accidents do happen on location. Next is to develop a shooting script. Most directors and producers, however, do not want to see a shooting script when they first read a script. They will usually just stop on the first page or two and be done with it. Since shooting a film is a collaborative effort, the initial vision, when it was first written, will most likely change. This is especially true if you're not directing your screenplay. In this context, the shooting script will be based on all of the work done thus far and will help to develop the specifics of the director's vision, which may be different from what the writer of the original text had in mind. The shooting script needs to establish the environment and show how, when, and why the characters and camera move through each scene. If the camera is to follow a character, that needs to be clear. Notes on composition need to be clear as well in order to show relationships in framing the shots, arrangement of the characters, focal points, and lighting needs. Additional notes on extra coverage and B-roll needs to be considered, especially around critical scenes. Too many inexperienced directors don't get enough coverage. It's better to have more than you originally planned for then not to have the shots you need. Fixing it in post can be a very expensive lesson that you should avoid. This alone can tank a production, believe it. Far too many inexperienced filmmakers rush or don't plan the shots well enough to get all that is needed. I've seen firsthand the many times when told they have missed a shot or some B-roll while on location and they get sidelined by what it would cost to recreate scenes or elements digitally later or in post-production. $1,000 or more a finished second adds up very quickly, especially when those same shots could have been captured while everything was still set up. It's time to create a production schedule. A production schedule will help you to block out the dates needed per location, help with scheduling of cast and crew, and securing permits and security when needed. Allow time for move-in, setup, construction, and striking of sets and gear. Also allow for additional takes, capturing a room tone, and anything else you may need on your particular shoot. Remember to include time for lunch and dinner. For many, their first few productions have some budgetary restraints. You may be able to get some people to help out for little or no pay, but at least make an effort to feed them. Even if someone working on your production does it for the experience and for the credit, they will remember that you fed them that day. Now it's time to begin your casting. Bad actors can tank even the best of scripts, and good actors can only carry a mediocre script so far. Finding the right person to fill the right role is important. Your production deserves that you take the time to find the right person for the role. Since you know who the characters are and their backstory, you may be able to find everyday people that fit those roles who are comfortable in front of the camera. Check out local theater companies, local acting resources through theater programs, and nearby schools and acting classes, and even Craigslist.com. If they are not truly right for the part, don't cast them. When possible, have auditions and cold readings in front of a camera. Not only will this give you a visual reference of the person in the performance, but you'll also see if the person freezes up once they know the camera is rolling. Many people do. Also make sure you have your auditions in a separate room from where everyone else is waiting. You want them to be comfortable, and you need to get the best that you can from them for those brief moments. Let the actors know when they can expect a callback from you, and make sure you follow through. And last but not least, consider having callbacks. If you need to see more from anyone, callbacks are not at all unusual. Now it's time to hire a crew. We all want to work with people we know and are comfortable around. Sometimes, however, that can be a costly investment. When possible, hire the most qualified person you can for each individual position needed, as opposed to bringing on a distant cousin or your girlfriend's younger brother. The person isn't hungry for the experience or doesn't seem to truly be motivated. Most likely it will cost you and or the production in some way in the end. Don't wait until the last minute to make your calls, and make sure to have a list of backups at the ready if someone doesn't show up. Los Angeles is notorious for no-shows. Based on the work you've done so far, take into consideration if your director of photography will need an assistant, especially if you have complicated camera dolly moves or focus pulls. Having a dedicated gaffer is a good idea. Make sure you have someone who will be recording sound and a competent boom operator. The one thing that ruins so many productions at the beginning of one's professional career is bad sound. You'll hear it in a lot of short films. Also, you'll want to hire someone who will be taking a log during production, and a continuity person as well. That's the one with the Polaroid camera, making sure everyone's costumes and hair look the same from the day before. Finding the right person to set up your lights is crucial. Last but not least, make sure you have enough production assistants as well. I don't think PAs get enough credit. They're at the bottom of the food chain and do a lot of heavy lifting. They're essential to keeping things moving forward. Remember, the more people you have to delegate to specific jobs, the more time you can dedicate to directing and getting the best performances out of the actors. You want to prepare your costumes, props, and set dressings. This is another area that often doesn't get enough attention on smaller film productions, as it should. It drives me crazy watching a war or sci-fi film and everyone on camera is wearing brand new looking uniforms, or a scene that takes place in a bar or a pool hall with a bunch of bikers wearing brand new leather jackets with no wearing at all. And the same goes with brand new uniforms on so many crime dramas on TV. Ugh. Even women wearing the wrong hairstyles to that particular period is a detail I catch. Those details, although they may be subtle, can turn off those watching your film if they don't fit the characters or the situation. Of course, you need to work within your means, but getting those details right will serve you in the end. Go online and research what people wore during the time your film takes place by the kinds of people your characters portray. Be thorough. Use examples to help your design team and prop masters to help them get the right fit for what the production needs. Your production will benefit from it. Let's break down your shooting script. I know earlier I mentioned to not write a shooting script, and at that point of the process, that is true. But at this point, you should know whether you are directing and producing your project, as well as whether someone else will be directing and you are producing. As the director, you would want to know where each scene in the script lives. Make sure that the scene numbers are in the script. Bracket off each intended shot and designate each shot if you're using multiple cameras. Cam A, Cam B, Cam C, etc. Make sure each bracket has a shot description. You need to allow overlap in action so that when your editors get the shots, they have options. Leave some pad. Make a floor plan as you envision the scene. This will help you when blocking cameras and the actors, setting up lights and the props, and help you analyze how dialogue will be given. Make sure to get card rates. When putting together all of the moving parts and the individuals to help put the film together, you need to get high and low prices from everyone. Often you will find people can be somewhat flexible if they believe in your project or if you are a student. Rental houses sometimes give discounts on gear over weekends or for student productions. This is also true when looking at your post-production options. Although post-production is its own stage of the production process, making sure you have the money to finish the production is not. Too many productions run out of financing near the end of principal photography and have to find gap financing or different distribution options to get them through. When speaking to someone about what the rates are for their services, ask them what the card rate is. The card rate is the standard hire charge that just about everyone pays across the board. Then ask them if there are options. You may be able to get a friends and family discount or perhaps an off-hours discount if you're willing to work around their schedules. Many rental houses rather have their equipment making money over a weekend as opposed to everything locked up in the warehouse. Plus, the card rates are what you need when you're putting together your budget. There will always be unforeseen issues that come up, and you need to have some padding to ensure you can pay for them. Music licensing is huge. Music licensing is a licensed use of copyrighted music with the purpose to protect the owners of the copyright and make sure they are compensated for the use of their works. There are limited rights to use the work without separate agreements, which can be determined by the numbers of copies of the film has been seen and its total revenue. It may also include additional payments if the film is financially successful above a certain agreed upon threshold. DVD distribution must be considered when negotiating, as well as the releasing of a soundtrack for the film will need another set of agreements. The last thing you want is to spend several years of your life on producing your film to only be sued by a record label for the unauthorized use of some ominous audio track in your motion picture your cousin found on his laptop from who knows when. Music licensing is big business. There are composers online that offer different usage options that are affordable and sometimes even free when you give them credit. If you can afford to have recording artists write something specific to fit your production, the rights to music and the lyrics will need to be negotiated. Whatever the terms you agree with, make sure you're not giving away too much of a percentage of your project that becomes a deferred payment agreement. Now it's time to lawyer up. Everything in Hollywood is about making money, period. Anyone who tells you different is either naive or naysayer. Many individuals who live for independent film will argue this, or at least that has been my experience. Although filmmaking is storytelling, it is also business. Big business. When you read the trade magazines, so many articles written are about lawsuits. It is in your best interest to make sure your agreements protect you and the production. This includes copyright and trademarks of artwork for the film, your production company, and branding you plan on doing as part of the film's promotion. If you go into production with an honest understanding and acceptance that your project is a product, it will serve both you and the production best. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not in any way inferring you should sell out or feel you can't be passionate about your ideas. But the bottom line is, if you're investing years of your life and the lives of others as well, why not get paid for the hard work everyone is doing? The third stage in the filmmaking production process is the production stage. This is the physical production where the scenes are created and captured for the film. The film's executive in charge of production or production supervisor would hire the additional crew needed for principal photography. Make sure that everyone you hire is clear on exactly what their roles are and what departments they are part of before they show up on day one of principal photography. There is set etiquette and set protocols that everyone must follow. Set protocols vary from set to set, but as a whole, they're pretty much the same. On smaller productions, crew members may be asked to help out in other departments, but on larger shoots, they stick only with the departments they are part of. Oftentimes, union rules are in place, and moving something you're not supposed to can get you fired, beat up, or a fine is enforced on the production. Encourage your inexperienced crew members to be smart and to keep their eyes open. It is crucial that they do the job that they were hired for. Let your crew know that if there's any doubt, not to be afraid to ask questions. Make sure each crew member knows who is running the department they are part of, and make sure everyone is on the same page. If someone doesn't know what to do or are unclear, it can cause delays in the production, will waste time and money, and cause possible injury. It's a good idea to have a safety meeting as well. Depending on whether you are on a soundstage or on a location shoot, the risk factors will vary. Most sound stages will have areas marked off to keep clear at all times, locations of fire extinguishers, and exits. Unions make sure that crew members are trained in everything from cardiopulmonary resuscitation to how to use various types of aerial work platforms correctly and safely. Our industry is one of the few industries that you put your trust in others' hands literally. That's why some compare working as part of a production crew to being similar to being part of a military unit. Production brings long hours, stress, and sometimes lives are at risk. It is important that everyone respects one another, is mindful of their surroundings, and keeps a positive attitude. Working 7 days a week, over 12 hours a day, and for months at a time can be hard and stressful. It's easy to lose patience, and tempers will flare up. Together as a team and as individuals, we must make an effort to let everything go. Figure out a way to let stress and shit go. Don't hold on to what doesn't matter and keep moving forward. Another point to be clear on, especially with your more inexperienced crew members, is to remain focused and never be lazy. It is their responsibility to always be ready for action. they are ones that complain all of the time, and yet everyone else is working hard, get rid of them. Every member is a gear in the machine, which is your production. Every one of them is replaceable. Encourage them to stay focused and engaged in what is around them. Lives oftentimes are on the line. Encourage professionalism and thinking things through. We're all part of the same team, but must also be strong individuals confident at the tasks we are hired for. Technically, this one should be the first thing to do during the production stage, which is shut the fuck up. What did he just say? In the digital age, so many people are posting random photos online and tweeting about every single damn minute of their lives. There is no room for this during your filmmaking. Remember, this is business. One thing that is true, ideas get stolen quickly, quietly, and with no remorse. Ever notice how many times there are several films released that are somewhat similar in close proximity of time? Guess why? Because someone stole the idea. It doesn't matter if they read a synopsis or investment package, or overheard someone in a coffee shop talking on their mobile phone, or whispered it softly during pillow talk. What matters is that there will always be someone with more resources than you. Your film is an investment in work, time, and money. Don't throw it away. Make sure that everyone is discreet about keeping things quiet. Believe me, leaking of information about your project can be very costly. This is something I should have mentioned in the development stage of the production process, but I mention it now because I've worked on locations and sound stages where people show up and begin taking photos with their mobile phones and posting photos and details of what they saw shortly afterwards on various social media sites. This has only caused problems and can jeopardize the production's integrity. It's also a good way to get fired, fined, and blacklisted. The setup. Production begins when the crew arrives at their call times to the set or location on their call sheets. Prep time has to be accounted for, which can be several hours or days before actors arrive to their call times. There is a load-in, setup, or construction of any set or set pieces. They would be accounted for while building the shooting schedule. This also includes the lighting setups and any set dressings needed before cameras begin filming. In most cases, the lighting and rigging technicians, known as grips, along with electric and production design teams, are ahead of the camera and sound departments. Based on a production schedule, they plan and prepare as much as they can to set up for the next scene, which saves on time and money. The grip's responsibility is to build and maintain all equipment that supports the cameras. They work closely with the camera department and the electrical department. They also work with the director of photography to create lighting setups needed for the picture. Let's bring on the thespians. The actors typically arrive at a different call time on most shoots. The hair and makeup department, along with the wardrobe department, work with the actors to get them camera ready. When there are special requirements needed in the applying of makeup and preparing the talent's hair, or if the wardrobe requires special time to get the actors ready, this time needs to be accounted and planned for. If there are any special effects, such as prosthetics or squibs involved, those also have time that needs to be considered. Be realistic when the shoot schedule is being made. The last thing you want to do is run out of time and you're missing key shots, especially on a location shoot or soundstage that you only have for a dedicated amount of time. Most sound stages I've worked on over the years would book around the clock and most times had another crew waiting to get started when our time was up. Work with actors on rehearsing the script for the scene and the blocking. Make sure to have your sound crew work with you to see if there are any issues in capturing the sound. Also, make sure you record room tone. Get at least 2 minutes for every room you actually shoot in. Trust me, your picture cutters will thank you later for it. Now go shoot something. Yes, it is finally time to get the cameras rolling. Congratulations! Make sure your assistant director knows his role. Part of what he does is he calls verbal cues to ensure everyone on the stage is doing what is needed to get each take. Picture is up, lets everyone know a take is about to be shot, followed by quiet on set or quiet everyone. If the take involves a recording of sound, he will say, "Roll sound." The production sound mixer will begin recording with his equipment. A verbal slate of the take's information will be recorded along with sound speed or just speed. Then the assistant director will say, "Roll camera." This prompts the camera operator to begin capturing. Once that has begun, he will say speed when the camera is recording. This is especially important when shooting with film because it takes a few more moments to make sure the film is moving at the correct speed as opposed to shooting digitally. No matter what, you should have a little pad on it. The clapper is already in the shot in front of the camera with a clapper board. He will call marker in most cases, will also give a verbal slate of the take's information. Both verbal slates are crucial for the assembly of the film. Having them ensures the desired takes of each shot are used. On scenes that require background action or extra, the assistant director will cue them with background action. This will prompt the background talent to follow the directions that were given by the director beforehand for that particular scene. Finally, the director will call action, which will cue the principals in the shot to do what was blocked out and rehearsed. Once the take has been completed, the director will call cut. The camera and sound equipment will stop recording. The script supervisor or the continuity person will make notes of any continuity issues during each take. Technical logs are also taken from every take by the camera and sound departments as well. Oftentimes the director will want to capture a safety take and do it again. Once the director has decided no additional takes are needed and is satisfied, the next setup of the next camera angle is prepared. This process happens repeatedly until all the desired coverage is captured. Once the whole scene is covered, the assistant director will call out, moving on, or wrap. Then the crew will dismantle or strike that set. Working with a group of people in close proximity under the pressure to ensure you are doing your best, as well as working 14 to 18 hours per day, every day for weeks, if not months at a time, creates a team spirit pretty quickly. On sets where everyone understands their roles, works hard, and keeps a positive spirit, oftentimes will build bonds with one another that can last a very long time. When the team works well together, the director will want to work with the same people again and again. Finding the right combination of crew that works well is hard, but once the right combination of individuals builds that positive and proactive team, it will be a formula for success for all involved. Work becomes easier and more gratifying. Wait, it's not over yet. At the end of each day, the director goes over the next day's shooting schedule for approval. A daily progress report is prepared and sent to the production office by the camera, sound, and continuity departments. The cast and crew are then given call sheets to let them know where and when they need to be for the next shooting day. The director, producer, and department heads get together to review footage from the same day or the previous day to review their work. These are called dailies. Sometimes the cast may be involved in a viewing. This stage is important because it gives everyone there an opportunity to review what they've seen and match up the logs taken during photography. It allows the opportunity to make technical notes and to see if additional footage, B-roll, or anything else needs to be added to make the scene work. It also gives the opportunity to look for mistakes. Being so much is shot digitally today, or there's a video assist set up to use during photography, sometimes the director may want to look at individual takes before a new camera setup is done or before striking the set. The reason for that is that not only would it be expensive to come back to a location or stage and set everything up again, but also there may be scheduling conflict. It is important to ensure you have everything you need before moving on. Although a reoccurring theme throughout the series is the importance of being flexible, staying positive, planning and keeping things moving forward, creating and sticking to a plan and following it is the only way not to be overwhelmed. You have to pick one item at a time of the day's to-do list and check that off once you're done. The fourth stage in the film production process is the post-production stage. This is where all of the media that was captured is assembled and edited together. Probably the best way to look at this stage of the filmmaking process is to think of your film as being a huge puzzle with thousands of integral parts that make up the completed story. At this stage, it is easier to see the many pieces because there is a convergence of everything shot and everything has a representative scene and take number. For many productions, this is the most time-consuming and costly part of the production process. The reason being, professionals getting paid a high rate are doing most of what is needed during this stage. Most facilities have a high overhead, and these same individuals are using the very best and fastest computers and networks being used in the industry. There are a lot of resources needed to keep a facility open. Operational costs are high because they need to cover existing infrastructure and networks, ensure connectivity never fails, computers stay cool, and their talent is being paid their rates. Facilities will most likely be renting most, if not all, of the computer equipment. This is very expensive, especially when the maintenance and proprietary software fees are included. And unlike the earlier stages of production, many of the ones that actually handle the moving parts of the assembly process and effects may have extensive schooling and some experience already in the production process. It is very rare that someone wanting to get into visual effects or picture cutting would have the opportunity to work on a Flame or Inferno upon getting their first job at an effects or editorial house. They would have most likely have been runners who are much like production assistants during the production stage, and they would handle the heavy lifting of operations at any given facility. It is not at all uncommon for a runner to be making deliveries of tapes and other types of grunt work for a year and a half, if not longer, before having the opportunity to sit at a $1 million workstation in the middle of the night for the very first time. Normally, I would have said this next one is the very first thing to do during the post-production stage because of its importance. and that is to remember to stay calm and breathe. If you're not overwhelmed by now, you most likely will be. A feature film can have hundreds of shots, all with multiple takes that have to be gone over one by one. Even shooting segments for a television show could have hundreds of clips to go through. I've seen so many times footage delivered with poor logging, if the shots are logged at all. When this happens, some productions will hire several editorial assistants to go over and sometimes digitize all of the footage into a non-linear editing system, usually at a low resolution, before sifting through the shots. This falls under the offline editorial part of post-production. This often is a very time-extensive and costly process, which for the most part could have been avoided if someone was keeping tabs on the shots as they went along. Keep your head together and track as much as you can as you go along. Do your best to get comfortable with the behemoth. Before going any further, you should know that post-production has many processes that fall under this title. This includes the intake, processing, and sweetening of production sound. Additional audio components such as automated dialogue replacement, design audio effects, Foley, and music are then added. Special digital visual effects, including three-dimensional elements and scenes, compositing, match moving and wire removal, film titles, and elements from the graphics digital toolkit for television, and the end crawl are done during the stage. When shooting on film, the process of developing the film and then digitizing for digital intermediate also falls under post-production. Digital intermediate allows sophisticated color correction tools, unparalleled control over film color. Color, contrast, and brightness in different parts of the frame can be changed over time, timed separately, and in real time. Scanning film and printing it back to celluloid in the laboratory is also part of post-production. Working offline and EDL. As I just mentioned, often an assistant editor will digitize the raw footage into a nonlinear editing system for editing. The offline editor or editors will begin assembling, often doing a string-out edit. A string-out edit is following the shots captured in the log during production and placing them in a timeline back-to-back. This allows the picture cutter to see what shots work best with one another for each scene, as well as see which shots from different camera angles can be included to make the scene work better. Think of it as giving the editor a visual toolkit of everything for that particular scene that he or her can move around to make the scene flow. As the edits are coming together, an edit decision list is generated. The edit decision list is an extension of the logs that were made during production. Great thing about this process is that the edit decision list contains all of the real information and associated time code representing each clip. This process saves a lot of time and effort towards the final edit. An autoconform can run on an online editing system which digitizes only the shots needed for assembly in high resolution. Once everything has been digitized and is approved, then it is ready for digital intermediate. I should add, digital intermediate takes longer and at the moment is still more expensive than traditional film timing in the laboratory, but prices are coming down. One major advantage to consider is since your film is in a digital format, greater options are readily available. In addition to what I've already mentioned before about digital intermediate regarding the ease of adjusting color, contrast, and brightness changes in real time, you now have the ability to also remove unwanted elements somewhat easily from shots. Plus, the combined prices for film and video timing, your fade and dissolves that fall under optical effects, and titles usually cost about the same as full digital finish. Do your best to be smart and on schedule. I can't tell you how many times I've worked on projects that just don't seem to end. Oftentimes, this will run into budget overages and possible deadlines missed. More times than not, this occurs when the director doesn't really know what he or she may want or his ego is in the way. Inexperienced director will tweak things to death before he wants it to be perfect. There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting your edits to be just right, but too many times you just have to stop and move on. One of the positive things about working broadcast television is that you are forced to work within a definitive amount of time. You work diligently to get your first pass completed and then go back and do as much tweaking as you possibly can before delivery. I've worked on thousands of episodes of live television and live-to-tape programming to learn you have to make your deadlines, period. Film often doesn't have the same time restraints, but one needs to make a decision when done enough is done. Oh, here comes the pixel fucking. If you are creating content for a client, you will be under the scrutiny of the client and his or her people. When dealing with big productions and with studios, there usually is an entourage of a dozen or more people that show up to review your work. It's not a big deal and of course within a client's right to be there, but I'll tell you, Dealing with the committee is a tiresome process in itself. More times than not, they'll have you nudging things around your screen a pixel away from where it was, change a color in a bar or graphic only slightly, or move a clip a frame or two in your timeline, only to justify their own jobs. It gets old fast, especially if any or all of them are cooked up. More times than not, you'll end up putting everything back to where it was before they first arrived, and they will love it. It's comical, and you will see this again and again on large projects. Expect all of this to come with a big heaping spoonful of coldly served hubris and self-gratifying compliments to themselves for the work you've done they're taking credit for. Fun times. On small projects, this happens as well, but you're usually dealing with a less experienced client who only knows what they want once they see it. Get ready for lots of revisions. Save all, save often. I know I've already mentioned to stay calm and breathe, and to get comfortable with the behemoth. For this next point, I have to stress again to always remember to be calm. For this next point, some of you may not like what you're about to hear. Depending on what kind of distribution deal you may have to give up to director's edit or director's cut. This is especially true whenever you're dealing with a film studio. Only the very top directors in the world get final cut on some of their theatrical releases and are rarely released to the public theatrically. This is why you often see director's cut, extended cut, and special edition versions of films when released on DVD or Blu-ray that may have 20 additional minutes or more of the film on the disc. This trend began in the 1980s during the rise of the home video industry as part of originally feeding a small cult fan marketplace. The studio who has invested in your production can insist on changes that they feel will increase the return on their investments. This is all about maximizing their profit, specifically with box office sales. The final cuts are often shorter in length to allow more screenings per day at the theater. Sometimes the studio executives may feel they want a better audience-restricted rating or even a happier ending than found in the director's cut. There are a lot of things that happen during the post-production stage of creating your project. Just like at the very beginning, you need to make your plans, make your list, and do each thing one at a time to ensure everything gets done in the right order and on time. Don't be overwhelmed if you feel you don't know all of the steps. There are others out there that do. Right from the beginning, you began building your team. Everyone in the post-production process is no different. You just need a handful of good people that can delegate and track all of the moving parts so that you can concentrate on what needs to be done next. The fifth stage in the filmmaking production process is the distribution stage. I am also including the things you and your entertainment attorney should be mindful of. These are all deal points that need to be clear before signing off on any distribution agreement. The first thing to do during the distribution stage is to consider your distribution outlets. If you haven't made a game plan by now for distribution, now is the time. Doesn't matter the amount of time and effort that has gone into creating your film if no one ever sees it. Having it as a vanity piece will not further your craft, career, nor the careers of anyone else who bled and sweat alongside you on this adventure. Up until now, most of the steps needed to create a motion picture are the same steps to create content for television, industrials, and straight-to-video marketplace and internet-based contents. The steps are generally the same, even with less people and money involved, but distribution is not. When your project was in the development stage, you should have considered what would be the best distribution outlet for your project. Will your film be released theatrically to the cinemas? Will your film be released directly to consumer media such as DVD or Blu-ray? Will the film be released as digital downloads or streaming media available to the public from a media provider or through your website? If your film is being distributed by a film distributor, there usually will be a red carpet premiere and a launch party to maximize the public relations buzz. Press releases, press review screenings, and interviews are all designed to help you have the best impact. Press kits are created as part of the promotional packaging as part of promotion. A dedicated website is also launched, different than that of the production company, which can have additional scenes, backstory details about the characters, photos, and other goodies designed to get the public interested in wanting to see the film over and over again. I should add, for most filmmakers today, their films are often developed and produced away from the studio that distributes them in the end. These independently produced films are usually financed by the pre-sale of distribution rights and may also have private investors. The film enters the acquisition agreement phase. At this point, the producer and film distributor agree on details of the distribution rights. This is called a negative pickup deal. In most cases, the studio that is distributing your film will pay for your marketing and advertising costs in a negative pickup deal. The studio and producer will share the profits. There can be a 50-50 split between the studio and producer without a distribution fee for the studio. Also, as part of a negative pickup deal, the distributor in many cases will offer to give the producer an advance. This is based on what is estimated the profits may be. Producers will want to get as large of an advance they possibly can acquire, knowing they may never see any payment on the back end. That's based on the film doing poorly and there are no profits to share. On the other hand, the distributor will want to pay as little as possible as an advance of his share on the projected profits. I've seen many first-time filmmakers brag about how inexpensive it costs for them to produce the film before the distribution deal is secure. This is a huge mistake. It's common for the distributor to not want to offer more than the cost of production. One thing is to always keep in your mind, the distributor has no right to look at your books, so keep your mouth shut. The tricky thing that may happen at this point is the distributor may offer a preemptive offer, and it's good for a dedicated amount of time. For example, you were offered $250,000 as an advance, but you must decide on whether to accept it or not within 24 hours. This is tricky because you may feel compelled to hold out for a better offer. On the other hand, a better offer may never come, and your offer is gone. This is why it is important to plan the release to potential film distributors to maximize your possibilities. I've seen many filmmakers get burned at this stage. Some distributors have been known to be creative with their accounting. I can't stress enough how important it is to go through the terms and fully understand them. Too often, profit participants don't see any return. The terms of net profits may be defined in such a way that is not in the best interest of the producer. Another mistake I've seen first-time filmmakers do is show the film when it's not completed. I cannot stress enough how easily opportunity will walk away, regardless of how many times the distributor may say they are professionals, blah, blah, blah. If the film isn't ready, it's simply not ready. Your first impression is your only impression. The best thing to do is to set up a screening and invite as many of the executives you possibly can. You want all of your potential distributors to see your film at the same time. This will help getting them to compete with one another. Even if some of the distributors want an early look, don't give in. Don't send out DVDs or have them view a digital copy online. You can promise to let them see it once the film is completed. If they're viewing it at their office, most likely they won't get through it due to interruptions. You want them in a live theater surrounded by live people. Fill up your place with your friends. You can rent theaters all over Los Angeles or at some of the studios like Paramount Pictures or MGM. One thing that happens during negotiations is that the distributor may want to cross-collateralize the foreign distribution rights. What that means is the monies earned from the various markets the rights have been sold to are combined together. For example, your film does well in one country and earns $1 million and loses $1 million in another country. When cross-collateralized, the percentage of your net revenue will be zero. This is because they are combined together. But if they were not cross-collateralized, you would get your percentage of the profits from the first territory, while the distributor absorbs the loss from the second. Many first-time filmmakers don't take the time to fully research what all this means for them. You should learn as much as you can before you begin reaching out to distributors about them. There are many unscrupulous distributors out there as well. You can do searches online and check the Superior Court dockets in Los Angeles for past lawsuits against them. You also want to check the distributor's financial health and reputation. Take the time to see if they're distributing other films similar to yours to avoid a possible conflict of interest. By this point, you should have an experienced entertainment attorney representing your deal. If you haven't been taking notes so far, this next part you really should. The deal points you and your entertainment attorney should be mindful of. Ready? The amount of the advance, the extent of the rights, foreign and or domestic. Which markets, if any, are cross-collateralized? Are there any ancillary rights? Are there distribution or overhead fees? What is the accounting schedule? Will it be monthly or quarterly? What is the track record of the distributor? Does the distributor have any leverage with the exhibitors when monies are owed? How and when is payment done? What is the marketing commitment and is it guaranteed? How much input does the producer have over theater selection and artwork and for which markets? How much input does the filmmaker have in the promotion process? In the event the distributor decides to back out early in the film's distribution, does the producer have the right to regain distribution rights? These are all deal points that need to be clear before signing off. An experienced attorney's job is to be your advocate. You want someone who is able to negotiate, or better said, improve a distributor's offer. If you haven't made a game plan by now for distribution, now is the time. For a filmmaker in the early part of his or her career, there are options in the independent filmmaking community. Being outside of the traditional forms of film distribution through studios, financing, distribution, and marketing are harder to accomplish. Most independent filmmakers attempt to have their films seen at film festivals. One thing you should know, some film festivals have an unspoken criteria where they have a preference for student projects. I've seen productions I've worked on go nowhere because once the films were submitted and fees were paid, they weren't selected. On more than one occasion, the film's director was told by someone inside that particular film festival of the preference of their choices. I don't want to give the impression this is every film festival. It certainly is not. But I have seen it plenty of times. Bless you, Internet. The Internet, without a doubt, has helped make our world smaller. Now there are Internet film distribution companies that offer an online distribution service geared towards the independent filmmaker. Some of those have helped get films sold via mainstream marketplaces and reach a global audience. Plus, sites like YouTube have programs that can allow content creators monetize their products. Remember to do your research. Some of these sites offer somewhat inexpensive services to help your film be seen. Others offer very little financial return. You will need to decide on whether making money on this project is your first priority or is having a strong calling card to showcase your work is, so you can have better financial and distribution options for the next project. Sometimes you can't have both, unfortunately, and this is something that should have been decided upon back during the development stage of production. There are tons of examples in the reality show world of lowbrow programming giving up as sacrificial lambs by the content creators. This was all part of a plan to gain accessibility to better resources for the next project. Remember, once your first project is out there for the world to see, it's easier for doors to open for the next one. Make sure you weigh out all of your pros and cons as you're making your list. I didn't want to get too detailed about online distribution now because emerging trends make it difficult to be specific on some technological trends because the technology grows at such a fast rate and is only increasing. A product or service may be obsolete 6 months from now and the replacement may not be available to the mainstream just yet. The American film market. Also, when making your list, make sure to include the American film market. The American Film Market is an 8-day networking event whose main purpose is to gather distributors and content creators from over 70 countries that are looking to acquire, finance, and sell projects for distribution. Don't think of this as a film festival. This is one of the premier global marketplaces in the film business. The American Film Market attracts distributors, development executives, financiers, attorneys, film commissioners, film festival directors, agents, writers, and film producers and directors. The American Film Market uses all 15 movie theaters on the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, which can have over 700 screenings. There are other film markets in the world, but this one is local and is a big deal. Plus, they have a lot of resources available to help you streamline whom you want to see while you are there. The event runs annually in November. Although marketing technically doesn't fall under distribution, it is important to have your branding together when you begin to reach out to others. Your one sheet should look like other promotional items, including the website for the project. There should be continuity throughout. See what worked for others in your specific genre. This may seem like a no-brainer, but it's not obvious to everyone. Look at what other filmmakers have done regarding marketing and branding their past projects and see what works for your project. Even if something is out of your promotional advertising budget, see how the individual pieces work with one another. There will always be something you can learn from another project's successful campaign that works that you may be able to use as inspiration. Look for continuity. A huge mistake some young filmmakers make is they don't have consistency between promotional items. Good branding is what people will remember. And don't be afraid to think out of the box. You don't always need a lot of money to get attention. Television distribution is a whole different animal. Yes, the American film market is also a good place to pitch your television series idea, but you should know a little bit about mainstream television content development beforehand. There is a misconception that mainstream television is dying, and that misconception is driven in part by the high number of low-budgeted reality programming running on the airways now. Some can argue that competing technology is growing too quickly for Hollywood to keep up, and the studios and networks are falling behind. That's talked about all day and night, but the reality is that everything in Hollywood is about making money. Big money. And Hollywood has and will always invest in lobbying, regulation, litigation, and enforcement of the law to protect their properties. One of the key factors most people don't know about is that a lot of the business decisions in television are based around affiliate fees. $32 billion a year in fees. Over the last 30 years, affiliate fees have become the lifeblood and the primary revenue stream of how the content for television is produced, financed, and packaged. You pay a fee to your cable or satellite provider, and a share of your subscription fee is shared back to the content owner and distributor. This is usually on a subscriber-by-subscriber basis. But what is interesting to see is how this really works. Cable providers began offering their programming for free as long as you can prove you are a cable subscriber. This allowed viewers to watch their content for free on mobile devices, usually 24 hours after they originally aired. As a content producer, this is good to know, especially when shopping for online distribution outlets. I've seen deals offered by some that offered a very low return for the content producers. One of the things mentioned throughout this series is Hollywood is about making money. What we covered here gives you an insider's view of the whys few outside the industry know about. Even many content creators inside the Hollywood trenches are not fully aware of much of what we touched upon. Without a doubt, there is a lot of information we have just gone over, and when looking at it in one shot, can be a bit overwhelming. Please don't let that discourage you. I should add that what I've mentioned here today might have some overlap. It's best to put together these items in order, but as you go through the process, you'll most likely find one of the elements you're working on directly affects something else. Sometimes multiple items are worked on simultaneously. If you're a one-man or one-woman show, it may be a bit difficult to do, but like with anything else, do your best to do one thing at a time and don't let it overwhelm you. Have fun with it. And as I mentioned throughout this series, we as members of the new Hollywood generation are all in it together. Be safe, be smart, take it all one day at a time, and don't forget to be great. I'm going to add a link at the very end to the episode, Filmmaking Essentials, the foundation of being a director and filmmaker. If you haven't checked it out, I think you'll dig it. Are you ready for the challenge?